Good morning. Today is Alma Chapter 32, verses 21 through 43. And yesterday, how it was just little snippets, there are like page after page after page of the rest of this chapter, because what happens in these verses is Alma is teaching. He's giving a sermon to the outcast of the Zoramites, who are not allowed to worship in their synagogues, and so he's teaching them, and he's this is his sermon. And in his sermon, he's talking about faith and how faith works, and how if you compare it to a seed, and if you experiment on it, then it'll grow or it'll not grow, and all that stuff. So the first couple bits, the first bit of it is, it's the good stuff starts in verse 23. So it says, He imparteth His word by angels unto men, women, and little children. So it's talking about how God is no respecter of persons, and how Alma is welcoming anybody freely. You know, it's not like the Zoramites who are saying only the rich can come in. He's saying everybody come in. Everybody come in. So then they give this story about that concept. And I'm just gonna, anyways, what's happening is this guy's in an elevator with his wife and his 2-year-old daughter, and it is jam-packed full, and everybody's just kind of like anxious to get off, and they want to go to their place of business, and like right before, like a couple floors before they all get off at the lobby, the elevator stops again, and he calls him a 300+ pound man. So a big guy in dusty coveralls and a huge tool belt and a toolbox gets on, and everybody's just like, ugh. And the guy's like, ugh. Nobody's happy that they're in this elevator. And then after like a couple seconds, the 2-year-old notices this man, focuses on him, and then very enthusiastically she says hi to him. She's very excited to see him. And of course his demeanor changes, and he says hi to her, and he starts being nice, and then everybody around is like, oh, maybe it isn't that bad. And it says, okay. Desperate lives holy. A little girl had demonstrated a simple truth. Everyone is worthy of our courtesy, respect, and kindness. Did Alma not say, little children do have words given unto them which confound the wise and the learned? Here was a case where the tipping point was one single word spoken by a child. My wife and I shall never forget the lesson in tolerance and human decency taught by our 2-year-old. And I think this is very relevant to today, where it's like, everybody's equal. Everybody's equal. Nobody needs to bow down to another person. Nobody needs to think that they're better than anybody else. Just everyone is worthy of our courtesy, respect, and kindness. And if everybody just held that in their heart to be true, instead of pride thinking I'm better than this person or I'm better than that person, then the world would be a lot better place today, that's for dang sure. Okay, so then he talks about an experiment upon my words, desire to believe, give place for a portion of my word. And it's this give place thing that caught my eye in this whole section, because it's a rather long one. And it's this give place, and it's a quote by Elder Neil A. Maxwell, and he says, what happens after we really give place for the gospel in our lives? It is analogous to a seed that begins to swell, fill, and enlarge one's soul, and to enlighten one's understanding. Of the results of such verifiable outcomes, asked Alma, what would not this increase your faith? He continued observing that the seed swelleth and sprouteth, asking, Behold, will not this strengthen your faith? Through this process of personal verification, we can accurately and experientially come to say, I know that this is a good seed, and thus faith yields to knowledge in that thing. But we cannot have the results of the experiment without performing the experiment. Some of us give only postage stamp place in our lives, and yet we expect to yield an acre. Place means time, thought, and service. And he uses big words, and I'm not great at pronouncing words. You all know this. But the part that I liked was that he says some of us only give a postage stamp place to the gospel in our lives, and yet we expect an acre. You know, how much place are we giving to the word to experiment? How much place are we giving in our lives? Do we only give Sunday? Do we only give morning and evening prayers, and then Sunday, like 2 hours on Sunday only? You know, it's like, how much place are you giving the Lord in your life? And what are you expecting in return? So I liked that. It gives a story about somebody being compelled to be humble. I don't want to read that. Okay, and then for the next couple of pages, it talks about the seed. Now we will compare the word unto a seed. I know that this seed is good. I know your knowledge is perfect. And then it talks about light, and really none of this really spoke to me all that much. Maybe it'll speak to you, but it didn't really speak to me. And another quote by Neil A. Maxwell. This part is in verses 41 through 43, and it's talking about after you've given place to this seed, and with faith you've nourished it, and you've cultivated your knowledge, and you're strengthening yourself, a tree will start to spring up unto everlasting life. And then ye shall pluck the fruit, and ye shall feast upon this fruit. So after you've given place to the Word of God in your heart, and you've nourished it with faith and with works and diligence, you know, a tree of everlasting life will spring up, and fruit will be produced, and you'll be able to feast upon that fruit. And in here, Elder Maxwell is talking about the hard times that come during that time. And I'm just going to read it, okay, because he's good. And hopefully I get all the words right. All right. So he says, even if we can do no more than desire to believe, said Alma, we are to give place for the gospel seed. We are to let that desire work within us by trying the experiment of the gospel's goodness in the laboratory of life, giving it place in our thoughts, attitudes, and schedules. Otherwise, it will be crowded out of its place by other pressing cares. When it is properly planted, we then experience the seed's swelling growth. We discern the goodness, and our faith in that thing can eventually be transformed into genuine knowledge. Unlike Jonah's gourd, however, it does not grow overnight. Some of its fruit only comes by and by. Nevertheless, we are responsible for nourishing the sprouting seed. Otherwise, it will not develop a good root system. And when the heat of the sun comes, it will wither. And how do we nourish it? By faith with great diligence and with patience. How vital it is to be rooted and grounded in order to take the scorching heat that will be a part of that special summer of circumstances which precedes the second coming of the Son of Man in power and glory and majesty. A brief scorching season, that summer will climax the centuries as the special moment among the millennia of mortal time. Now what he's saying in this is that hard times are about to come. You think now is hard? You think today is hard? You think the last couple of months are hard? Nah. Harder times are coming. It's going to get worse. And if you don't have a good root system, if you haven't tried this experiment, if you haven't planted that root deep enough and had the roots in every single fiber of your life, you will wither and scorch. gives you something to think about. All right. So then, he gives another story, and I liked this one, so I'm going to share it. So it's from Ed J. Pinniger, one of the writers of the book, and he was an institute teacher at BYU or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But anyways, one day when I was sitting in my institute office, I heard a tentative knock on my door, and I invited the student in, and she requested a few minutes to visit. As we started, it wasn't long before tears came to her eyes, and she said, "I don't understand it. I read the scriptures every day. Why did I do what I did? And now I am not in full fellowship of the church." So basically, she had sinned, and she's like, "I don't understand why I sinned. I believe in the church. I read the scriptures. Why did I sin? I don't understand why I did what I did." And he expressed love to her, and she wanted to know why she had sinned when she had been taught that if she held to the iron rod, she would have power to overcome and deal with temptation. And then he says that they discussed 1 Nephi chapter 15, verse 24. He says, "We must hearken," which means not only to listen, but to do. We must hearken to the word and hold fast, which means to own, keep, retain, believe, embrace, and apply the word with a firm, lasting, permanent, and unwavering commitment. Yes, the power of the word comes only to those who hearken and hold fast, which entails more than a casual reading of the scriptures. Like all things, scripture study must be done with real intent and by exercising faith. Once she understood that principle, the student left my office with renewed hope. The future was brighter because she understood and appreciated the doctrine and power of the word. So she's saying, why did I sin? I read the scriptures. And he's saying, you can't just read the scriptures. You have to live them. You have to own them. You have to keep them. You have to retain them, believe, embrace, and apply the word with firm, lasting, permanent, and unwavering commitment. You can't be a casual fence sitter. You can't have Sunday faith only. You have to have unwavering commitment. You can't, if you are a fence sitter, if you only read the scriptures and don't take them in, or passively accept what they give you, or, you're like, oh, I just read a whole chapter and I don't even know what I read, that's not going to keep you safe. She thought if you read the scriptures, that was holding on to the rod of iron, and that you would be protected from temptation. Nope, temptation comes. It comes to everybody. You just have to, what's more? You have to be stronger, I guess, You have to, you're holding on to the rod, but where are you looking? Are you looking off to the great and spacious building, or are you looking to the tree of life? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. All right. So that's Alma Chapter 32, verses 21 through 43. All right. Love you all. Talk to you later.